We go. It should be
There we
recording.
go.
Did everybody get their little notification?
Yes.
Lovely.
Thank you, Liz. So,
Beautiful.
hi everyone, and welcome to this financial wellbeing workshop. I'm Alison Watts, and I'm here on behalf of the Southern Cross Postgraduate Association. And we've been working with Liz for a while, and we've got a whole host of financial wellbeing workshops laid out for the rest of the year. And this is our first one, which is pretty exciting. Just a little bit more about the Postgraduate Association. We do a whole series of advanced skills workshops throughout the year. And we also run an annual conference. And we also offer support one-on-one and advocacy. So keep an eye on our notifications that come through the Blackboard. I think that's how you all saw us. I might post a link to how to register to the association in the chat box. But that'll do from me, and over to you. Thanks, Liz.
Lovely. Thank you, Alison. So yes, welcome everybody. And I'd just like to do the acknowledgement of country too before we begin. So I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands that we're all connecting in from for this webinar today. And I pay respects to elders past, present and emerging, and recognise and celebrate their connection and role for caring for country over thousands of years. And may their wisdom and strength be with us today. So thank you. Lovely to have Isabel and Steph here live with us today. And of course, those who are listening back to the session, wonderful that you're listening back to try and get some information about demolishing your debt. That's our focus today. I do just like to make sure everyone's quite clear that these sessions are, all of the wellbeing webinars that I deliver are all for educational purposes. So I'm not providing investment, legal or tax advice. And the information that's provided is just general in nature, and it's just for educational purposes. So it doesn't substitute financial advice, and I would encourage you to seek out that advice if that's what you need, or to see a specialist. So yeah, just so everyone's quite clear on that. But welcome to the webinar. I usually open with this slide that I hope really captures all of the amazing and incredible things that all of the postgraduate students like yourselves are doing or have just completed. Lovely Isabel here has just finished. So that's just absolutely amazing. So we've got so many amazing coursework, PhD studies that students are doing that you are all doing. And I'd just like to say welcome, and love to be able to draw upon all the wisdom and skills that you have. And I know that you can bring those to your financial lives as well. So often we might be coming from different fields and perhaps feel like the space of finance is not one that you feel a lot of competency in, but I know that the skills that you've developed, obviously through the stage and the incredible stage that you were at in terms of your education, that you can bring so much to your financial life, probably more than you think. So I'm hoping that we can share some of those experiences as well. So welcome. Just a quick intro about myself for those who haven't met me before. So I am Liz McLardy. I taught at Southern Cross University for nearly 5 years in this business school, teaching accounting. So I'm a CPA, and I taught second and third year, both undergrad and postgraduate accounting students, and loved my teaching time at Southern Cross. I've recently moved into Swinburne University, so enjoying that teaching as well. But I also have my own small business where I do financial coaching and financial counselling for my own clients, but that's also the capacity in which I'm here working with Southern Cross Postgraduate Society to help you as students, to help you in terms of having, probably hoping to bridge some of the gaps perhaps, or filling in spaces where you feel like you are missing out on some financial education. I know from the list of students who registered for this today, you're coming from all different backgrounds and fields, and perhaps you may not have got all of the financial education you feel like that you hoped that you would have. So hopefully through these webinars, you'll be able to gain some of that additional education that can help you not only alleviate some stress so you can focus on your studies, that's really my aim, but also as you then go out and you finish your degrees, finance it touches every part of our lives and our business lives and our career lives. So if it's that you want to start your own business or you're managing a budget, whatever it might be, these workshops really help you to become more familiar with financial terms. Obviously, it's applied to your personal life, but it all relates. So yeah, really hoping that they're of value to everybody. So today, we've got our first webinar for the year, which is very exciting. And what we generally try to do is provide once a month webinars like this. And I know the times don't always suit everybody, so it's lovely we've got 2 students here today, but obviously you'll have that time to listen back to the recordings as well, which I know are really valuable for everybody. So today we're focusing on just one particular topic. If there are any topics in the future that you would like me to cover, something particular that you would like me to cover, please contact me. And you can do that through my SCU email address or contact the SCPA directly, their help desk, which I'll show you all the details at the end of our webinar today. So I like to kind of cover off 3 key things in this time. We usually I kind of talk for about half an hour to 45 minutes, hopefully with a little bit of engagement, because I don't want to be just a talking head. And then we can have dedicated questions at the end. But of course, we've just got Isabel and Steph here today. So if you've got any questions as I'm going, it's really casual. Please just, interrupt me if there's something you want to ask. What I do like to sort of say as well at the beginning of all of my workshops is acknowledge that personal finance is personal. And yes, while we talk about the figures and numbers, there is also the deeply emotional, psychological side of our financial life. So I know that it can cause stress for people. And if anything we work through today does start to cause you stress or you want to talk about it, I am here in that capacity as well. And I can certainly pass you on to and direct you towards people who may be able to help. But I just want to acknowledge that it's not just about the numbers. It is our emotions and our mental health as well. And I'm hoping that as we educate and we become more aware of what tools and techniques we can use, that's going to help that mental health side of things as well. So I'm going to cover off 3 things today. Firstly, the big question of how can I pay my debt off quickly? So I've got a couple of 3 sort of researched methods that you can use, and we'll talk through those. Secondly, some practical ways that you can actually channel more cash into paying off your debts. So some ideas of things that you might be able to unlock some capability in your own day-to-day life that you can actually channel towards that debt. And then at the end, sort of think about, which is really, I guess what we're acknowledging is that people do have debt. So here are some techniques to help you. But the ending point is really to try and prevent you from getting into consumer and bad debt again. So a little bit of a discussion about that as well. So really important to begin with is, before I jump into these 3 different techniques, is to also make sure we're clear today that the debt that we're talking about, and you may have heard this before, often we talk about good and bad debt. So we're really focusing on the bad debt today. And I don't usually like to use those words, but what we're really talking about is the debt that you get into that's to purchase items that are not going to increase in value. And that's the bad debt. So that's your credit cards, because you're purchasing items, maybe clothing, it may be electrical items, things that are not going to increase in value. So those items are best to be able to be purchased without debt. And it may also be a car loan or a personal loan. And that's in contrast to good debt, which is, say, a house or an investment property. So that's debt that you take on, but those assets or those items that you purchase, they are usually going to increase in value over time. So that's when you might hear accountants or finance people talk about good and bad debt, and that's the difference. Does that make sense to you all? Is that quite clear? So, and that's something to think about when we get to the end of the webinar too, when you're actually becoming aware of the different types of debt and what you're getting yourself into, to think, is this the right time to use a credit card? Is this the right time to use debt? If we can kind of try and undo some of that. But I know that some of us are already in the situation where we do have debt. So, and that is the case for many people. So we do need to have some strategies and ideas of, okay, that's the situation I'm in. How can I get rid of the debt as quick as possible? Because obviously that's going to help your financial position. And it's also going to eliminate the financial stress associated with having that debt. So the key would be, if you do have any bad debt, that we want to try and eliminate it or demolish it as quickly as possible. So what I have here on this slide, and I know it can look a little bit busy, is we've got A, B, and C, 3 different methods. So these are 3 different methods that have been researched, and you'll often find if you do any financial reading, if you find any books and some research, these are 3 different methods that you can use to try and eliminate your debt, your bad debt, as quickly as possible. Now, what I'd like to do is sort of talk them through one by one to explain them. And some of you are probably aware of them anyway. Maybe they might have been called something different, but you might be aware of them. But the concepts are pretty straightforward. But what's really important is what you'll find when I talk through them is some are more financially beneficial than others. So some will make more sense financially. You'll financially be able to pay something off quicker. But on the other side, we've got to also think about the motivational and personal impact. So some people are motivated in different ways. So that then makes one method possibly more effective for that person. So I'll get into it and you'll see what I mean. So the first method that we're looking at here to try and pay off your debt as quickly as possible is the snowball method. So this method is where you actually look at all the different debts that you have. So you might have maybe a couple of credit cards or a personal loan, whatever it might be. And what you do is you actually rank those debts in terms of the smallest to the largest and the debt amount, not the interest rate, but the debt amount. So this snowball method is really about trying to build momentum and motivation for you to pay off those debts. So you might have them, so you'll have them linked from smallest to largest, and it allows you to channel. Obviously, you pay the minimum payments on everything, but any extra money that you have, you go towards paying off that smallest debt first. So then what will happen is quite quickly is that debt will be completely demolished, and you'll get quite motivated and you'll be fueled by that satisfaction and achievement that you're right, I've got that debt done. And then you go to the next one, and then you channel any extra money you have to the next size of debt, and you're working your way down. So that's kind of that method. So you rank them from smallest to largest and then pay them off in that order. So that's your snowball method. The second method is called the debt avalanche. So similar, they use similar terms. But this one is where you're actually looking at the interest rates. So you're going to pay the debt off that has the highest interest rate first. So the key thing first with all of these is for you to be aware of what all your debts are and the interest rates you're paying. So a great quick Excel spreadsheet for you to do would be great to have that to summarize it. So what your debt is, how much you've got owing, and what is the current interest rate. Having that data listed out first, and then you would go into looking at these different methods. Your debt avalanche would say, right, let's look at the debt that has the highest interest rate, and you're going to pay that one off first. So you would then rank them in terms of the interest rate, not the size of the loan, but the interest rate. And again, paying off minimum payments of all of them, so you're not incurring any additional fees or charges, but channeling any extra money that you have towards paying off that highest interest rate loan first. That would be the best approach here. So financially, that one is obviously going to be the strongest because it's making financial sense. You're actually paying off the most expensive loan first and eliminating it first. But often it can be the largest debt, and you can lose motivation. It can feel like you're not making progress. You need to be really giving yourself feedback and tracking the progress you're making. That's really important to make sure that particular approach is effective. Whereas with the snowball effect, you can see, if you just had a $100 debt left over on a credit card and you paid that off and you got it done, that's quite straightforward and easy for you to see the outcome of that effort. But sometimes with the debt avalanche, it can take a little bit longer to get rid of that highest interest rate debt first. So just for that, keep that in mind. So the next one is debt consolidation. So another possibility is if you find it easier just to combine all of your debts together and you consolidate them into one, and then you can pay off just one loan amount. And it's kind of for some people that's psychologically easier that they've just got one debt that they're paying off. So they're 3 different most common effective ways to sort of tackle your debt. Really important that you have a strategy that you actively, consciously decide, right, what am I going to do with these debts? And for you to think through, well, which one is going to be the most appropriate for you. Does anybody want to share any other ideas that they've had, or any of those, if you've had experience with any of these, if they've helped you, if it's relevant, if you've got anything that you want to share? I don't know, Isabel or Steph, if you have anything there at that point you want to share.
Yeah,
Isabel?
sorry, I was making myself another cup of tea.
No problem.
Yes, I have used the snowball method. That you basically just have a small debt and try to pay that as much as possible, and then always working towards paying the bigger debt. Even though you're getting rid of the small ones, I'm always thinking, what's the big one? How can we get rid of that big one?
Sure.
So, basically, those two.
Okay, so you kind of do a combination. So you kind of you're getting rid of the small ones because that's kind of easy to kind of get them off your plate. And then if you've got if you've got two left over, then maybe you might try and pay off the one with the highest rate first, because financially that makes sense. So then you're going to channel, and that's fabulous. Of course, you can do like a hybrid that works for you as well. So that's brilliant. And I think you probably, from that experience too, the key is to consciously decide, how are we going to attack this debt? What are we going to do? And to have that plan and to stick to it. Because obviously that gives you power in terms of, you can set up automatic payments, etc. But even psychologically, you've actively decided, what are you going to do, instead of just carrying that stress of, oh my gosh, we've got these three debts, what are we going to do? Well, I'm paying a little bit here and a little bit there, and it doesn't resolve that stress within you. But if you've got a strategy and a plan, and if you have a partner and you're working on it together, that also makes it really clear and powerful what you're aiming to do. So would that be your experience too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I work with my husband, and we're constantly in concentrating on getting rid of the stuff, and so that way you always have a goal. You're not just doing things for the sake of doing things. You always have a goal.
Perfect. Yeah, that's absolutely it. It's and you can keep yourself motivated and give yourself feedback. All of those basic performance management techniques that we're probably all really aware of. You've got to create those for yourself as well, to keep yourself motivated, keep on track, and to give yourself feedback. Yes, we've done that. We've set that goal. We achieved it. And that's going to only keep the momentum and motivation going. So we often forget about these things in our own personal lives, but setting them up is absolutely so important. Fabulous. So on my next slide, I just had a bit of like a question scenario situation, which again is not anybody's situation, and obviously all of yours are going to be quite different. But I wanted you to consider, so if you had these 4 different debts, so you've got a $7,000 car loan, $500 medical bill, 2.5 credit card, and you've got $100,000 home loan. Although even before we go into the question, which of those are good debts and which ones are bad debts, just to kind of check in with our understanding. Does anybody want to in a chat? Isabel or Steph, if you want to say, or even Alison, if you're listening in, if you want to.
I have no clue.
Okay, that's okay. That's good. Alison, any ideas?
I would suggest a credit card debt is probably a bad debt. That's
a bad debt. Yeah, good. And the car loan also, because we know that it's not an appreciating asset, unless it's a fancy car that we've actually bought as an investment, and we know that it's a specialized car that's actually for investment purposes. All cars lose value as soon as they roll off the out of that shop floor. So anything that loses value as soon as you buy it, you don't want to be spending or using credit for. So you're absolutely right. The credit card is bad debt. Your car loan is bad debt. Your medical bill is also bad debt. And I'm not saying, so sometimes those situations happen. And if you do have medical expenses, of course, you need to prioritize your medical health wherever you can to reduce those fees, and you'll do that. But if it is that you've got to use your credit card for that, of course, that certainly does happen. And that's one that you would certainly want to be trying to pay off quickly. It's really just your home loan there that would be classified as a good debt. Again, I'm not really comfortable with always classifying them that way, but it can be helpful when we get to the end to give us good information for when we're making future decisions about do we use credit for something or not. But for a home loan, houses do usually appreciate in value. So to use that kind of facility is okay. So it's like an investment property, similar kind of thing. So just considering those different, if this was your scenario, which method would you use? And Isabel, you've already kind of answered, I guess, in your own. You've kind of said that you would use a hybrid method, which is what you've experienced already, looking at, using the snowball to probably eliminate the small debts. So you might pay off that medical bill first, get rid of the credit card, the small ones, and then you would be, really then focusing on that car loan in your debt avalanche kind of strategy. Steph, I don't know if you out there are, so I'm missing messages down there too. So you've got to keep up with all these little, lovely, and you've added that too, Steph. Sorry to acknowledge your responses there late, but yes, you said that the home loan is a good debt, so that's great. Any ideas about what strategy you would use if you had those debts, Steph, in terms of the snowball? Might just wait to see if she might pop in an answer there. But Alison, any thoughts either? I don't know if you want me to include you in this workshop.
Oh, sure, I don't mind.
Yeah.
Well, Steph's made a good point there in that first text of snowball method and focusing on debts that have no interest.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So that's a good one. Yeah. And also that idea that once a debt, however small or big, is paid off, the help it gives you mentally, like the boost it gives you, is fantastic. It's very rewarding to pay something off, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that psychological load that we often carry without acknowledgement it's a burden, and particularly if you've got a number of them and they're hard to track. Absolutely, Alison. Like if once you've paid them off and they're done, that sense of achievement, but it's something that you no longer have to do. It frees you up, and not only financially, but energetically, emotionally, psychologically, you've got excess cognitive space to direct towards something else because that's no longer an issue in your life. So it's absolutely life-changing. Lovely. So Steph's also saying that you're going to aim for the snowball, pay the two little ones off first, and then sort of strategize around those larger ones. And what we haven't got here is the interest rates. We've got what the payments are each week, but you would be looking at those. So, and I think what I really wanted to get out of having a question like this as well, and through the discussion, is and really come back to the whole reason why I'm delivering these webinars, is to provide information, to bring awareness to the different ideas and techniques, but for you to think about what would work for you and what makes sense, and that's empowering you to make those decisions yourself. So that's really wonderful to see. So that's great.
I was just quickly going to say another thing. If one's focusing on, paying down their credit card debt, for example, is like stop using it.
Yes.
Put it at home, put it in the cupboard or something. I don't know.
Cut it up. No, absolutely, cut it up, demolish it. And that's where we'll get to at the end of the webinars too. Absolutely. Okay. It's almost coming back full circle to say, let's not get here ever again. What can we do to ensure that we're never there? So, and looking creatively at all of those different other options of buying that thing that's we don't have the cash for right now. What else can we do? So to absolutely agree. And whilst you are, I think that's really important too, though, whilst you're on the path of, on the mission of getting rid of it, don't create more. So whatever it was that got you into that, get rid of the credit card, have just a debit card that's your money, have a plan around it, and where you can, which is what I'll get to in a minute, plan as much as you can for things. Try and have a little bit of an outlook to the next 6 to 12 months. We can't plan for everything, as I was saying, some of these medical things that come up, but you try to prevent them from happening. So absolutely agree. Thanks, Alison. So our next step here is what I wanted just to look at, what are some of the ways that you can, practical ways that you can pay off that debt. So we've talked about the strategies in terms of, how we which ones are we going to tackle first, and have a plan around that. What's our goal? Which ones are we going to demolish and how? But here is also about, and it kind of ties in to what you said there too, Alison, is looking at what are some of the ways that we can actually change some of our behaviours. That's one of the things, but also our behaviours are driving where our money is going. So could we look at some other options here? So I've kind of split them into two categories. So you can see here at the top, it's looking at, okay, what are some ways that I could actually increase my income? Is there anything that I could do to increase income? Obviously with the direct purpose of channeling that extra income, not into purchasing more things, but to get rid of that debt, because that's your number one priority if you've got a lot of those bad debts, is to make sure that you can channel that. So here is just exploring some options around what you could do to increase your income, looking at, is there promotions available, new jobs? Isabella's set up her own business. So, looking at the skills that you have, are they, could you provide services? There's so many different options. And this is where coming from all the different fields and backgrounds that you're all coming from, those enormous analytical problem-solving skills that you all have, putting them to use here in this domain of your life is really helpful too. So just try and think outside the box, creatively think about what are some other ways that I could, not manically and in a energy of scarcity and frenzy. I don't think that ever helps, but to try and think, what could I do here to bring in some more income so that I can channel to these debts and get rid of them? So is there additional part-time work? Could you, obviously, being academic levels that you all are, is there tutoring that you could do? That's a possible one. Are there things online that you can do, tutoring that you can do online, webinars that you can deliver, services you can deliver, hobbies that sometimes people turn into money. Another one, sometimes people are in a scenario where they have a house and they have a living situation where they have a part of that house that they could rent out to somebody. Obviously, there's a lot of things you need to think through with that scenario, but is that something that you could do? And there's extra money also that you could bring in and channel towards getting rid of those debts. Are there any assets that you have that you just don't need anymore? We've all got lots of junk in the garage. Sell off things and, make sure, channeling it all straight to that debt. And then once you get to that situation where you don't have it anymore, if you've actually created a way to earn more income, you're going to have that extra income to do extra things with and to build wealth, but also to enjoy. So that's really nice as well. So there's the income sort of side of it. And then there's also, how could I potentially free up money in my expenses too? So are there things that I could change, even if it's temporarily? So if you've got a goal around demolishing a particular debt in 6 or 12 months, what can I do over the next year? I'm going to change the way I'm eating, or I'm obviously, wherever you can, looking at your ongoing expenses and negotiating those once a year is really a good way to try and find little savings, although that's getting harder because they're all increasing, but as long as you can try and keep them, at a reasonable rate. But looking at ways that you can live and do things differently, that can actually free up expenses as well. So then that money that you've unlocked, you can then channel towards that debt and pay it off. And again, this kind of links into, Alison, what you were saying in terms of when you're making those purchasing decisions is thinking through when you're about to buy something, is this in my plan? What is it that I need to give up if I'm going to buy this thing as well, if it's not in my plan? So being really conscious and aware about what you're buying and why. And if there's any particular habits that you have that are costly, and unnecessary, or that you could substitute and do another way. So I'm not talking necessarily all bad, unhealthy habits, but it could even just be a gym membership. Some people love it, and that's a really important thing for them to do. And I'm not saying here as well, it's all up to the individual. But if you're somebody who thinks, oh no, I could actually do that at home, and I really love going for a run on the beach, and I might do that for the next 6 months, and I'll save that money and channel that towards my debt. If that's something that could realistically work for you, then, that's an example of how you could do it. But it's just thinking through your own personal situation. So that's some ways to kind of, free up some extra money to pay off those debts as well. And here is, and some of you, well, Isabel might be familiar with this kind of layout too. This is from we have a financial wellbeing webinar series that we deliver twice a year, and part of it we give you lots of different tools of how to manage your money, and this was one of the cash flow management tools. So that's also going to be really, really helpful when you've established a goal around getting rid of a particular amount of debt. You need to then work out the details of how that's going to happen. So having a cash flow management tool, an Excel spreadsheet, or whatever tool you like to use. I love Excel. People will get to know that about me. But you may use something else, and that's perfectly okay. But whatever it is that helps you to structure your income and expenses, calculate it, keep on track of it, so you really are putting as much money as you can towards those debts to pay them off, is really important. So Isabel, I don't know if you kind of use the cash flow management tool or how you've gone with it. Steph, if you use one at all as well, I don't know.
Well,
yeah, Isabel?
I haven't played with it lately. It's just been but it does help to make you think, what is coming out, the payments that you make. So, sometimes it's so easy just to write things down. Yeah, it's all over the place, and it's very helpful just to visualize something so that you know where things are coming in and things are coming out, and what exactly you're saying, what can I do to make, to change things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And it's not, and don't be critiquing yourself like you should be doing it every day. It's not meant to be done every day. You've absolutely done all the hard work. I know we've worked together, and you've put together your income. We've sorted all of that out, and you know exactly how much you've got that you can be putting towards. And that's really what it's meant to do, is to give you that information. Because as you say, often it's kind of all over the place. You're kind of like, oh, I know that I've got this much coming in, but I've got this bill, that bill. It just structures it for you. So you're like, right, here it all is. That's my income for the year. That's my expenses. So I've essentially got that much left over. So I know I can be putting an extra $50 towards my debt each week, or whatever it might be. And then you don't need to be monitoring it all the time. That's not the point. Once you've done it and set it up, you might look at it once a month to check in, or once a quarter, once you really get into it. But yeah, it's really giving you the power of information, right? So you're giving yourself clarity on exactly what's happening with your finances, so you can then actively decide, right, okay, I do have this extra money each week, and I'm going to put it towards that debt, which will mean, yes, we can pay it off in 6 to 12 months, or whatever your goal might be. So you can then check in and say, right, yeah, this is a realistic goal, I can achieve it. So yeah, that's all. You never feel like you're not doing enough.
Yeah.
Steph, did you have any? I couldn't see any message. You might not be able to. I was just interested just to see if you do any tracking of your own cash flow or income and expenses. But if you get an opportunity to pop it in there, that'd be great just to see. So yeah, but perhaps with this, when we upload it, we might be able to add a link, or maybe the email that goes out, I might send out those spreadsheets again, just if it is, I know that students are coming on all the time and they've missed some of these resources. So Alison, I'll do that, make sure that they get those, if that's helpful for students as well. So yeah, just making sure that we're tracking that. And then the last part, where we've kind of come to for here, which is kind of starting, it's kind of the end, but it depends on how the cycle works, but it's really thinking about, what you should consider before you take on any debt, which we were talking about before. So really asking yourself, is this something that you really need? And certainly if it's an asset that is going to depreciate or decline in value or be worth less once you buy it, which is obviously any of our consumer goods, you need to be really making a decision quite clearly that those things are what you use cash for. And if you don't have the cash today to buy it, you don't buy it today. And then if it's that important to you, you need to save up to buy it. So that's what's really, really important. Because we've got to remember that it's not just the cost of the item when you're buying something on credit, and that's why it gets blurred, that the true cost of that item it's going to be that price plus the interest plus the fees, and depends on how long you're carrying that debt for. The cost of that item, the real cost of it, is so big. And I have to acknowledge here too that I don't want anyone to think that the way I'm coming across it, that this is really easy. It's not easy, because clearly the amount of consumer debt that Australia and the world is facing is so large. We know that the beast that the institutions are that push on credit cards and debts and all of these really quick and easy ways to borrow money, and that coupled with the culture of, you know, success being all about having particular things, and we've grown up in that, and there's particular items that you own and you think that, yes, I should have them. And then again, that we've had no financial education either. So all of those three things all mixed together, it's no wonder the majority of us are managing consumer debt, and this not only the financial consequences of that, but because obviously I've just finished my diploma in financial counselling as well, and work with the people who are really struggling at that end and have a lot of challenge with this. So I really want to acknowledge that if anyone is going through that as well, and to acknowledge that if you are in the situation with consumer debt, that there's nothing wrong with you either. You know, that it is really actually a hard, you have to be so strong to kind of fight all of the pressures that surround us, not only in, you know, someone's, you know, it's almost like you're right there in the shops and all of these facilities are like, here, you can have the money, you know, it's no interest for 1 month or 24 months or whatever it is. All of these things are set up to try and make us buy things that we don't have the money for. So, and that's really hard. Isabel, I can see your hand up too. Did you, sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yes, I was going to say there are many individual circumstances that people are placed in. You know, you may, you know, you also could be, you know, your health is not well, and there are things that you have to purchase with a credit card because you have no other access. You know, there are many individual circumstances, but yeah, the thing is that we are constantly bombarded with that, you know, constantly buy. You know, like how many TVs are you going to have? How many lounges? How many times are you going to change your lounge? You know, like, yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah.
It drives me crazy. I mean, like, seriously. So,
yeah,
that, you know, even if exactly as you're saying, you know, it's interest free and you have all these, just don't fall into that unless you don't have a couch and the couch is actually falling apart. They buy a couch.
Yes. There has to be some sort of reasonableness in there, but thank you so much for sharing all of that. Absolutely agree. And yes, acknowledge, absolutely, there can be circumstances where you do need to use those credit facilities, absolutely. And there's nothing wrong with that. But again, once you're in that position, you know, knowing that you need to work to get yourself out of it, and that, you need to battle all of these forces and this bombarding of culture and facilities that enable you to take on debt that you don't need. It's hard. It really is hard, and you've got to be strong within it. But hopefully through these webinars and talking about it, it raises your awareness of it, and also strength in standing up and thinking, well, no, I don't have to have a brand new couch. If someone comes over, it doesn't have to be fancy. You know, obviously people will have different ideas, and I don't want to put all of that onto people either, but to challenge some of these cultural things that we do have, I think, is really important. You don't have to have brand new clothes that are always in fashion. What about, you know, what is it that you have? And I know Isabella, well, I'm a big op shopper and I love secondhand things. So that's not for everybody. I acknowledge that. But, you know, looking at, you know, that's that creative mind of what can I do with what I have? Could I, you know, spend a little bit to just do it up a little bit, as opposed to, yes, buying a whole $5,000 couch and then getting yourself into debt, or being told that there's no interest for 24 months. They can still be really tricky and get people into situations. So, so really, nice. I guess at this it's kind of the end of the webinar to kind of end to try and make sure that we're clear when we're making future purchases to be, and I don't like it, you've kind of got to be suspicious or cynical, but it's kind of a healthy dose of that whenever you go shopping. You know, everybody is wanting you to buy. When you go shopping, you've got to be prepared for that. If it's online, if it's physically, whenever you enter it, they are going to make it as easy as possible. So knowing that, you've got to then arm yourself, take that credit card away, only have a debit card, have cash. Yeah, you know, enable yourself to not fall for all of those things. And it just makes me so angry to, you know, all the different ads you see, all of these different facilities now. Oh, you need this quick. Oh, that's broken. Here's some quick, you know, $1,000, $2,000. But the interest on those things are crazy. So wherever we can not be in a position to have to need those facilities is the best. So yeah, and I think I've kind of gone through some of these. So, you know, can you buy secondhand? You know, are you already in debt? You know, if you are, then really thinking through, as Alison was saying too, with that credit card, don't let that cycle continue. You know, you don't want to get into more debt. You can see the path you need to go through in order to get yourself out of it. So let that thing be of the past. And yeah, be a real advocate for that as well, even for others who are around you. So that's really, I guess, yeah, starting again with the beginning in mind. When we're setting out and making future purchases, we're taking a really positive stance for the future and looking after ourselves financially, but also our mental health and well-being, that we're going to make those really conscious, aware decisions about what we do purchase. And that hopefully from this webinar too, with some of those little strategies, we've got some information that's going to help us to take action towards any debt that we do have, so we can start to work and eliminate and demolish that. But then we know, stepping out into the future, that we're not going to bring any more of that into our life, and that will be a thing of the past. So hopefully that's what you've gained from the workshop today. I had a final little, and I don't want to go into this in too much detail, but it is worth just being aware of that. There is obviously an implication for debt and debt levels for those of you who are, you know, thinking about buying a home and things like that. So having lower amount of debt is not only positive, as we've talked about already, but if you are wanting to borrow money to purchase a home and that's what we'd be sort of going into that category of good debt, because it's going to be appreciating in value, that having a lower level of debt is going to help you to be able to borrow more money too. I know that's a no-brainer, but there are some sort of statistics that banks will use. So when you, just for you to be aware of, so when you do, many of you may have already been through this process, but for those who haven't, that you would be itemizing all of the different loans that you have, the assets that you have, the income that you have. That's all normal part of that home loan process. And that they then do a little bit of analysis around what that debt to income ratio is. And in some circumstances, if you've got too much debt, so, you know, a 6 ratio is quite high. And what most would probably be looking at, you know, they sort of say 35%. So if you've got a ratio of 35%, so your income is 35% of that debt level, that's probably, you know, manageable. But just to be aware of that. So I don't want to get into all of those details, but just as a final thing, that again, really important to get rid of that debt for another reason here, for when you're looking at purchasing your home as well. And then what it will mean for you as well when you do that, and if you do have a home loan at the moment, and you may have other debts, once you've paid off those debts, all that momentum that you've built and all that extra income, you can then start to channel towards that home loan. And I'd really encourage that, because then you can get rid of that home loan as quickly as possible as well. And then that's a life changer as well, that all that extra income that you're going to have to be able to, obviously lifts your cognitive load a whole nother level, but you've got some other options in terms of what to do with that extra income and that wealth. So that's my final piece. And again, you know, keeping debt at a manageable level is important for good financial and mental health. So that's really that key final message that I had for today. And as I said at the beginning, if there is anything that you would like to chat to me about, please get in touch. So I do run the free, we've partnered together with SCPA to be able to deliver free one-on-one consultations to students. So they can range from anything to, you know, chatting about helping you set up your budget, talking about starting up new businesses, which I've had the honour of working with Isabel on. Anything, if you've got any questions, I've I guess I can just draw upon my skills as a CPA and the experience that I've had to help really coach and just give you extra things to think about. So more than happy for you to reach out through. We've got the email there. There's the skills at SCPA down the bottom, or I still have my SCU email address too. You can email me directly and book in a time. So yeah, more than happy if that's something that would be helpful for you as well. So that kind of brings us to the end. I hope that's I know it's kind of covered quite a bit, but it was lovely to get some of that discussion and personal reflections as well. If anybody has any other specific questions, I'm happy to hang around and take those.
Just out of interest, Liz, I know it might be like maybe not about debt, but a few of our friends were talking about like how we've tried to stop using our cards and use cash.
Yes.
And stop kind of tapping and inserting a card and whatever, and just use cash, because every kind of micro transaction on your card is, you know, a payment to an institution. So
yeah. And it's also it also allows you to lose control, or you lose a sense of where you are. And I'm absolutely a big advocate for using cash. Particularly, I've got different types of clients that sometimes it really suits them, so it's not for everybody. But particularly if you are somebody who has a little bit of recklessness with spending, and the credit card, it just becomes too easy. If you bring yourself back to using cash, you take out just that cash and that's all you've got to use. It's a very powerful, clear boundary. And even having it divided into, you'll find it, there's a lot of information about this online as well. It's called like the cash envelope system. And it's an old accounting method, and a lot of people's family members may have done it as well as a budgeting method. Really powerful. It allows you to sort of each week, or whatever the period in which you get paid, have different envelopes for different things. So you might have one for groceries, whatever it might be. Those things that you usually swipe your card for, have them even in Ziploc bags with labels, and you use the cash. Once it's done, it's done. Incredibly powerful. Yeah, love it. So yeah, that's also another great tool for people to think about. That's definitely very available, and that's the only challenge is that it's becoming less and less easy, because you'll go to Woolies and they have 2 checkouts, self-checkouts that allow cash. Everything else is card.
I know.
So they're making it harder and harder for you to stay in control of your spending. So if we know that, and we're not going to get angry about it, well, we could, but you know, okay, that's where we're at. They're going to make it as hard as possible for us to keep in control and to not overspend. We've got to say to ourselves, right, what can I arm myself with to stay in control? And cash is one of those fabulous tools. Yeah,
it
absolutely.
Is.
Love it.
Yeah. And when you're making purchases, they're already getting the FPOS machine ready, and you pull out the cash and they go, oh, cash.
Like, oh, some of them are like inconvenience, but some of them love it. So go with it. It's still funny. It's still okay. It is funny. It is quite funny. And the only little thing would be, obviously, I always have images of my beautiful grandma, who always carried cash, but she had far too much, and I know that can. So it's always being careful about how much you have with you at any time as well. But you know, having I think it's absolutely fabulous. Love it, that sounds like you've got people that you're talking about, you know, in friendship groups or whatever, colleagues.
Yes.
They're different methods, so so nice. Whereas a lot of the times people won't talk about any of this stuff.
Yeah.
But the more you share, the more you get little tips from each other. And
that's right.
That's where it's helpful. So that's lovely. And I can see Steph saying you haven't got any questions, and that's fabulous. Thank you for coming along though and sharing some of your insights through the chat. That was fabulous. I hope you've enjoyed it, and we might, you know, connect up at some other point. There will be a webinar, as I said, approximately once a month throughout the year, covering all sorts of different topics, and Alison's amazing at sending out all the details, and you'll see all of that come through. So I'll look forward to catching up with you in the future. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Liz. That was really good. Yeah, excellent.
Thank you. No problem. And thanks, Isabel. I'll catch up with you again soon too. And congratulations again.
Yeah, it's very exciting, Isabel, to graduate.
You graduate. When was the graduation? Did you?
It's not happening yet. So basically, but I got all my work
Yeah.
into the association, the social
Lovely.
work association, and registered.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think the graduation is sometime in, I think at the end of February.
February, yeah.
Nice. That I'm just, yeah.
Do you go to the virtual? Do they have a virtual one still? Do they do that?
No idea.
No. Yeah, okay.
But yeah,
There
no,
you
I'm
go.
happy with my piece of paper. That's all I want.
That's all you need. No, and you've done all the hard work. That's the biggest thing.
I think
Yeah.
graduations have returned to live in person.
They have, haven't they? But I wondered if they were going to do a hybrid, because
Yeah.
it was quite nice as well for some people. But yeah, the live ones are also fabulous, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's, yeah, very cool. So yeah, nice to see you again, Isabel. And yeah, I'll email you today about some times over the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
And thanks, Alice.
Lovely.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a
Bye
lot. That
now.
was awesome.